you can tend to your wounded heart and still be open yourself to life. You can carry sorrow in one hand and possibility in the other. You're allowed to miss what never was and step into what could still be. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to feel over it to start creating joy again. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Untangled Minds podcast, helping you navigate to your truest self, one conversation at a time. I'm Noor, trauma recovery therapist and relationship coach.
And I'm Ron, a therapist, advocate, and writer. And in our last episode, we talked about the very important topic of the one-sided love, an issue that a lot of clients bring into the therapy room. And we talked about what it is, some of the symptoms about it, and then also where it may actually stem from, such as the early childhood experiences. And so in this episode, what we want to do is follow up on that by talking about some of the ways that we can manage and heal this wound of the one-sided love.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I think, that awareness of what's going on, this one-sided love, why it feels so painful, that is important insight to have, right? So what we want to do is to take it to the next level with this information that we have about what it is that we're going through. How do we heal, these parts that are in so much pain?
Because I think what's very common nowadays is that a lot of people know that they have this tendency to pursue a one-sided love, but they don't know how to disentangle themselves from either the relationship or the partner.
Yeah.
And I think one way that we can start, right, is in the previous episode, we talked about the loss. We talked about the grief, right? And we talked about letting go and the difference between that and letting in, which is allowing yourself to feel this grief and to accept it for what it is.
Yeah.
And I think even though we know that that's the case, I think it's a little bit difficult for someone in the throes of a one-sided love to actually accept and embrace that idea. So what would you recommend to someone to,
I would say, it starts with learning how to validate your pain, your grief. Just because it wasn't mutual does not mean that whatever it is that you're experiencing, that pain is not real. You felt real emotions in that situationship or relationship. You felt something.
Right. And that's why you
person.
Yeah. And that's why you got together with the person in the first place. Those emotions of love or like infatuation or like feeling seen and cared for, those were all real. We can't say that, no one can say that those feelings were wrong or weren't real or false.
Yeah.
Right.
And that person clearly meant something to you. He or she represented, a hope, a dream that you never quite, materialize or see through before. But it was through that person that you saw something that could potentially happen. That did represent hope to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hope, and especially like for a lot of us, we have either a history of adverse childhood experiences or a history of like not so pleasant relationship experiences. And as a result, this hope, when we hear especially maybe the word like letting go or like just like suck it up or words like that, right? What we tend to do is we tend to stuff that hope down, stuff that love down, that need to be loved. And that's the opposite of what people are supposed to do, right?
Yeah. So I think at the beginning, it's so important for us to be able to, again, to pause and to learn how to witness these parts inside of us. They are clearly in a lot of pain.
Yeah. Instead of suppressing them, which is, I think, the natural first response, because like, especially then we talked about parts, right? The parts are like shouting at us and screaming at us and giving all of these unpleasant thoughts and feelings. And then our first thought is to suppress them, is to push it down under the water so they don't pop their heads up. But when this happens and when we do that, eventually they just come up right back up again. And in probably even more intense ways.
Yeah. So the first thing, validate that grief, that pain, that loss, right? And second thing, when you are able to really witness and see these parts for what they are, the raw form,
right,
then are you able to see these parts for what they are, which are just, these parts coming to you because there are parts of them that feel unseen, unmet, and not really, fully held in the ways that they want them to, right? So a question for you to be curious about through that person, what unmet need
I see.
did you see that person was able to fulfill? Was the need to feel seen, to be loved, to be protected.
Right. And tying back to the idea of the childhood experience, right? It is this need that was often unmet when we were a child, and that now we are seeking from a person, from this relationship, even though that it may not be the right place to find it. Yeah, and I think that can be really frustrating for someone who knows that this is what they're facing, but they're unable to name what need that's underneath the surface. Because I think we talk a lot about, the pain of like breakups and the frustration and the disappointment and the anger, but we don't talk about what's the flip side of that, what we actually want. So we call this the pain of presence, right? Which is the presenting issue, the breakup or the one-sided love. But then what we often don't see is the pain of absence, which is what we actually want in our life, what our inner child actually wanted. The protection, the love, the safety, the things that we didn't have. And that's what these parts are trying to tell us.
And I think this helps you to powerfully shift from obsessively thinking about them to what's going on internally.
Inside.
It helps you to meet you and all these parts that want your help, that want your attention.
Of course.
Right? Because when the focus is just on them, why is it they can't love me? Why can't they just choose me? It puts you in this helpless loop where you have no control.
No autonomy.
You cannot choose why they can't choose you.
Exactly.
You have no control over why they don't want to love you. But you do have the opportunity and you can choose on how you want to meet yourself, either with more shame or criticism or with more compassion, love and understanding.
Definitely. And those are the things that your inner child would have wanted in their time of need. And it's also interesting to me that also another relevant concept is this idea that when you enmesh yourself with a certain person in this one-sided love relationship, your entire life, your entire objective becomes this person. And then oftentimes we forget why we got with this person in the first place. Right? The connection, the safety, the protection, these are the sense of security, right? These are all things that we want. But when we get it mixed up, this basal need, the need that we all can't deny, and then we mix it up with this person. And eventually this person morphs into connection or protection entirely. That is when we fall short of what we want. Because this person, as much as we are invested in the idea, is just one path to this need.
Yep.
And obviously, like when you're in the throes of a one-sided love, your entire idea is just, the entire idea of connection and protection is this one person. And part of healing is to distance yourself from that and realize that oftentimes there are multiple paths to the direction that you want to go in.
Yeah. And the problem with the emotional attachment and enmeshment is that it shrinks your world.
Right.
Contracts your world, right? So in this world right now of the enmeshment, is just you and this person who doesn't want to choose you. Who doesn't want to love you.
That's it.
Right? Yeah. And even though you've been through other, positive, safe connections in your life, because right now, your obsession and your focus is just on this person who didn't choose you, that part of you just dismisses everything, all the achievements, all the good stuff that's happened so far in your life.
Totally. And it goes back to, in our previous episode, we talked about, I have to get with this one person. If not, I'm unlovable, or I'm broken, or I'm worthless, right? But you don't have to do that. That's just one of the other narratives that we tell ourselves in order to justify our pursuit of this one person. But yeah, it's not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. So really allowing yourself to look beyond this surface level connection and this obsession that you have with this person.
Of course.
And really understanding the backstory, the narrative, the unmet needs.
Exactly.
That need to be addressed and need to be attended to.
And I think when we truly know and acknowledge and be open to this idea, right? What it does is that it helps our younger self to accept this idea that the person to be able to give these things to ourselves could be ourselves, could be us now in the present. We don't have to rely on anyone else or like an unavailable partner to give those things to us, right? Instead of like taking this whole coin of like connection and safety and just throwing it all away, which is what most people do.
Yeah. So I think it's about learning how to unlearn what we know on how to seek safe connection and relearn new ways on how we actually establish the sense of safety,
Right.
emotional safety in our life.
Yeah. Is to plant that seed first.
Yeah.
Right. And so let's say somebody like they are able to name this unmet emotional need, be it connection or safety or protection. What then do they actually do next now that they know?
Yeah. So again, when we're talking about healing, these emotional wounds, it's not just about knowing it and having that awareness at that, surface level, cognitive level. It's so important for us to bring into the equation our lived experiences that's found in the body, what the body remembers, what the body holds as well, right? Maybe right now your mind is telling you, yep, I'm a confident, valuable human being. I deserve so much better. I deserve to be in relationships that are mutual, that actually care about my feelings, that love me in return as well. So maybe that's what you know right now at the mind cognitive level. But your body might be holding on to something completely different. And the only way for you to know where your body is at and what it is still remembering is for us to be able to learn how to attune to what our body is also speaking as we are, talking about, this experience of one-sided love. How is our body also relating to this experience? Is it also feeling safe right now, stabilized, or is it still holding on to parts of fear and shame about not being chosen, not being loved?
I think it's really funny because we all I have had so many situations where I'm over this, like situation or like whichever it is, but then there's something off in my body. Maybe it's like pounding really hard or like I'm like sweating or like I'm like trembling, and then the moment I get home, it all like boom, yeah. It's like a torrent of like emotions just coming through.
Just
everything.
Beliefs, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So I think it's really about looking at any incongruence that is coming up right now. So you're telling yourself, yeah, I'm cool, I'm okay, I'm over it. But again, pause, really listen and notice, what is your body experiencing right now?
Totally.
Is it aligned to what you're thinking as well? Or do you experience something completely different? Maybe you're feeling really drained, suddenly like so exhausted, almost like, depressive sort of state. Do you feel anxious?
Yeah.
So these are the signs to look out for.
And there's no shame in admitting that there is an incongruency, because that's extra information for you to ask yourself what exactly needs to change.
Yep. In order for you to connect the dots, you need to collect the information, right? To collect all these dots in order to stop, pause, look behind, and to connect all these dots to make sense of what it is that you're going through, how to then move forward with what you know.
Yeah. So let's say somebody has done this work already, right? And they've connected the dots, they know their unmet emotional need. But what is some, concrete or tangible steps that they can perform to truly bring them in the path of healing the one-sided love?
Yeah. So one of the things to be aware and cognizant of is the environment that you're in, right? If you are still finding yourself in environments where maybe you're checking up on the person's social, right? You're still having pictures of the person in your phone.
Mm-hmm.
What this does, it's gonna further re-trigger those wounds, and it does not create that space and separation that is required for you to do this work and this healing.
Yeah, just imagine like every time you open your phone, right, and you see like a lock screen is like a picture of you and the other person together, obviously it's gonna like re-trigger those like wounds.
Yeah. So one of the things that we need to remember about healing from one-sided love the part of us that feels obsessive in wanting to make sense of what just happened. Why can't we just be loved, be chosen? It's important to be able to understand that this part that can't stop that obsession is this part that is caught in a fantasy that is not the current reality. Right?
Interesting.
So with that, we need to be able to put in place tangible actions, boundaries in place to be able to cut off that fantasy fuel that is clearly, fueling this obsession, this need to control things that's not within your locus of control.
And how do we do that? What are some ways to cut off the fantasy?
So one of the things is, taking a stock check of the things that you feel is fueling this obsession, right? Like, for example, if you are, still following this person, stalking this person,
okay,
we want to be able to be aware of those habits and to see how we can actually put in place to either cut it off totally, or if it's something that is really hard for you, to be able to see whether we can put in place small baby steps to gradually have that cut off.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's say if you have a picture of you together on your home screen or your lock screen on your phone, and every time you open your phone, you see that image, and it feels like you're just tearing off the band-aid or the plaster every single time, and it's preventing you from actually healing your wounds.
Yeah.
And this isn't a case of you have to cut them entirely out of the system, but just an act to prevent more trauma from being injected from your senses.
Yeah. So maybe right now, if that picture of them and you are on your lock screen, you don't want to be so drastic, right? So maybe you could, kind of move them to, what's the other screen that's not your lock screen?
The home screen?
Right. Maybe they could be moved to the home screen and not the lock screen, right? If you're finding it hard to see them in your photo albums, maybe they could be moved to a dedicated album that's not something that you immediately see the moment you open up your photo album. So we want to take baby steps, but making sure that there are steps in place. Slowly make that change.
Exactly.
Different environment.
For example, if you don't want to block someone, that's a very big step to take.
Yeah.
What you can do is maybe restrict them so that they're not seeing your post and you're not seeing theirs. It's small actions like these before. In the future, maybe you do want to take these actions, feel free to do that.
It's hard.
Oh, it's so hard.
It is hard, but the environment that you start to slowly change and curate, it will have an impact on how you slowly start to relate to this pain that you're in. Because imagine this, right? If you're still in the same environment, that is going to trigger those wounds. That's going to trigger up old wounds, right? It's going to be so hard to kind of move through it if you're constantly bombarded by all these
Exactly. Yeah, and it's not this isn't running away, because at the same time as what we're doing to cut off the sources of new trauma and ripping off the band-aid, what we can also do is replace it with healthy sources of connection.
Yeah.
Right? People who do love us and who have shown this consistent source of connection, even if let's say we don't feel the same level of infatuation or love with our friends, the fact that they're willing to be with us and willing to stay with us in our time of need, that's actually what our nervous system needs to really believe that you are safe and you are protected.
Yeah.
Yeah. Replacing that, just going back to the first episode, having multiple sources of connection, just like we have multiple sources of income.
Yeah, absolutely.
And apart from finding new and safe people, right, the goal here is to, because of this one person, right, our world was contracted, right, like we mentioned just now. So our goal is to slowly and gradually enlarge our life, enlarge our world by injecting in new opportunities, new activities that engage our creativity, that help us to help other people who are suffering, and all of these other small little things that we can do to slowly reclaim our lives from this fantasy that we have to be with this person.
Yeah, I really like to highlight the importance of doing that to slowly expand our world, because I'm going to imagine it's like this, right? When that rejection happened, it causes this rupture, this pain on the inside, this emotional wound. And this is you feeling this pain. right? So when that rupture happened, it contracted your world and you're really close to this emotional wound. And when we actually do things to create, safe connections, safe spaces for us to explore the world, to see things beyond this pain, we create greater space outside of this pain and this part of us that is in this pain. And with that creates a lot of the breathing space for us to roam around.
Exactly. And explore.
To explore life and to have space from this pain so that every microsecond of the day is not this pain, occupying our minds.
And I'll even say once we do this, gradually we also open ourselves up to the idea of getting into new and healthier relationships with new and healthier people. Because now you're better aware of the signs of this one-sided love.
Yeah. So it is a gradual process. It will take time, right? It is totally normal at the initial part of it. It's going to feel so painful, right? And especially if you've had past wounds where it hits you the same way of being rejected, of not being chosen, right? So it's natural when something happens again, it's going to hit you really hard, right? So I think it's so important to be able to meet these parts inside of us with a lot of that understanding, compassion, and grace, and knowing that these parts are going through a lot. It's not just the present moment stuff, but a lot of past stuff.
Totally.
That's also being triggered as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think we've gone through a lot of the solutions or the management methods to dealing with the one-sided love. But at the end of the day, we would like to end off this episode by giving you a really heartfelt message. And I think I'll give this opportunity to Nur to voice out this message that we've written for you.
Yeah. So, it's this. You can tend to your wounded heart and still be open yourself to life. You can carry sorrow in one hand and possibility in the other. You're allowed to miss what never was and step into what could still be. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to feel over it to start creating joy again. Grief and growth are not opposites. They walk together. You're allowed to grieve and still move forward, not because you've forgotten, but because you've remembered who you are beneath the ache. Because you've decided that your story doesn't end with who didn't choose you. Because your worth was never dependent on who saw it and who didn't. It has been yours all along. And you are worthy of this healing. You deserve to live a beautiful life with someone who sees you, appreciates you, who loves you the same way. So take the time that you need. Be kind to yourself. And we're so proud of you for starting this journey of healing. So thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you for being with us here today.
Stay curious, and we will see you in our next episode.
Take care.